The restricted free agency period is over. What does it mean for Bennedict Mathurin next year? Should it change his extension outlook? We'll talk about him. We'll finish up Aaron Nesmith. Some other Pacers signings are happening. And let's talk a bit about the Fever on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today I want to wrap up extension talks for the Pacers this offseason. It's officially October. Aaron Nesmith can sign an extension any day. Ben Mathurin is still extension eligible. Both of them no longer extension eligible starting October 20th. So the Pacers have less than 3 weeks now for both of these guys. But the restricted free agency class of the 2021 draft just finished up. Quentin Grimes is done. Jonathan Kuminga is done. Josh Giddey is done. Cam Thomas is done. What can Ben Mathurin learn from this experience? What can the Pacers learn from this experience? What does this tell us could be coming next year in this process? We'll finish up Aaron Nesmith thoughts. Honestly, not a ton, if anything, has changed on his front, but we'll still take a peek at it. The Pacers are doing some other stuff behind the scenes with signings. We'll talk about some Exhibit 10 stuff, including a local legend, sort of. And we'll conclude, if we have more time, talking about the Indiana Fever and their magical season that just came to an end. I like to squeeze in a segment about them ever so often when I can. Let's, though, talk about the topic of the most note in the NBA right now. October 1st, yesterday, was the last day for qualifying offers in the NBA. Basically, if you're a restricted free agent and you get a qualifying offer, if you don't sign it by October 1st, you're still a restricted free agent, but you can't sign the qualifying offer anymore. So that was the deadline for teams and players to figure it out. And so all of the guys in complicated situations, Quentin Grimes, Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Cam Thomas, I already said their names. It's settled. They all are with the team they were with before, but on different kind of deals. And throughout this offseason, I've been talking about Bennedict Mathurin and his potential extension outlook with the Pacers. I've said, let's just keep an eye on these guys, see where their situation goes, see how applicable it is to Mathurin, and if it would maybe change his appetite for an extension, right? And I've kind of said for all these guys, maybe less Grimes than the rest, but that there's something about them that makes them something Ben Mathurin could say, I should think about what happened with that guy, right? Josh Giddey goes to a new team in his 4th season, is a starter, enhanced responsibilities, plays pretty well, gets $100 million over 4 years, right? Ben Mathurin is about to, in his 4th season, albeit on the same team, walk into way more responsibilities and a more prominent role. If he does what Giddey did and seizes that opportunity and plays pretty well, right, money could be coming his way. Jonathan Kuminga is clearly very good, like a good player. He got $48 million with a team option over 2 years, a little over $48 million. Like, that's a good player. That's over $20 million a year. That means you're a solid starter or like a premier bench player. But he clearly has some fit issues with the Warriors, which is why they didn't play him at all when they were fully healthy and turned to him in the second round after Steph got hurt. Kuminga seemed like he would have liked either a more solid contract or to play for a different team that was promising him different roles. That's where his comp for Mathurin comes. Clearly a good to very good player, perhaps some concerns of fit with their current team. Cam Thomas is kind of this score first, face up 2 guard in an era where that kind of player has less sort of value. Now, Cam Thomas is on the Nets, and that's relevant because the Nets stink, and they just drafted a bajillion guards, and their need to truly go all in on a Cam Thomas future isn't really there. But the style he has, the thing he's the best at, and Cam Thomas is a brilliant scorer, underrated player. He's such a good scorer. Got the qualifying offer. His extra offers from the Nets were not very good, right? A balloon payment 1-year deal where he waives his no trade clause, a 2-year deal with a team option that I didn't think was high enough for him to take it. And then Quentin Grimes at the buzzer takes his qualifying offer from the Sixers for $8.7 million. Sounds like the Sixers offered him very little extra money over that for a no trade clause, which he was smart to not accept. I'm very surprised Quentin Grimes can only get the qualifying offer. He's a good player. And that's the hardest situation for me to specifically compare to Mathurin. He's been on so many teams that it's hard to say like change of circumstance and role was like the same way it was for Giddey, for example. But that's still scary that a good player got quite literally the lowest possible floor they could get in restricted free agency. So what if you're Ben Mathurin, how do you survey the situation? I would say personally, Giddey did okay. I think that's a good contract for Josh Giddey and the Bulls. Kuminga did like 24 million the first year, a little like 22 something, whatever, is good, but not maximize his earnings. We'll see. And Grimes and Thomas certainly are maximizing their earnings. So if you're Ben Mathurin, and if everybody's been asking the same question, are you looking around at this going, oh man, like if I'm not a for sure star, should I just extend now? Should I just do what Jabari Smith just did? Jabari Smith was like, yep, 5 years, 120, or whatever it was, lock it up. Or do I want to take the risk that I can find a real negotiation next year? Because that's not impossible, right? That is the part that I think. So everybody rightly, and that's why I brought it up, wanted to talk about the example set by the players I just said for Ben Mathurin, right? Good restricted free agents in a troubling environment. But what nobody really talked about was restricted free agents this offseason who had no problems with their old team, including one with the Pacers. Isaiah Jackson, I thought, got a pretty good contract for himself with the Pacers. He was a restricted free agent. That went fine. He got 3 years, $21 million. Santi Aldama got 3 years, $52.5 million on the first day of this. Davion Mitchell got 2 years, $24 million this summer, right? So, yes, there were some high-profile restricted free agency freezes, but like N'Faly Dante, Justin Edwards, Colin Gillespie, AJ Mitchell, Drew Smith, like there were real restricted free agency situations. Cam Spencer that went okay this summer that is happening right now. So, what I think the first step is, if you're Ben Mathurin, is do you think that the reason that the guys that were talked about so much, Grimes, Kuminga, Giddey, Thomas, are they like, is he at that level or he'd be in that class next year? And I think, first of all, the answer to that question is yes, he's as good as those players, where he'd be in that top tier of restricted free agent where it's like clearly a good player that other teams would want, but like could run into a situation with his own payment. Because all those guys I just talked about that had pretty easy off seasons outside of Santi Aldama aren't so good that it's like, we lost him to an offer sheet, right? That is part one, is where does he kind of fit? Part two is how different is the actual dynamic next summer going to be of free agency? Because that has been a talking point that I've just kind of wondered about myself is, so part of the reason this summer was so hard for restricted free agents is there were not teams that could offer them money besides their incumbent team because of bird rights, right? They couldn't just go out and get an offer sheet somewhere else. The only one of those restricted free agents that I just read to you was N'Faly Dante, who switched teams. He went from the Rockets to the Hawks. Everybody else is on their team that they were on last year, including Isaiah Jackson, right? So it's a good market for the incumbent team, which is why they're so hard with their offers. Next year, they're projected to be more teams with cap space. I keep seeing like 10, 9, 11. That seems too high. A lot of those teams, if they just keep young guys or do some extensions this summer, seem like they won't. Looking at it myself, the Hornets, they have some extension eligible guys. The Pistons have a bunch. The Wizards have a few, and they'll have some big cap holds. And the Blazers have a few extension guys and some big cap holds. All seem like teams that won't have cap space, but they could without doing anything crazy. And then the Jazz, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bulls, and the Nets are in the same camp where they're all easier. They all should have cap space, I think, with what I would consider logical moves. So on one hand, it's probably overstated how many teams will have space next summer. On the other hand, there's at least 5. There could be as many as 6, 7, 8. And what we just saw happen with Miles Turner to the Bucks is at the drop of a hat, if any team really wants to do it, they can get it. So I do think if you're Ben Mathurin, your assessment of restricted free agency is 2 things. It's one, that the new CBA with unrestricted free agency starting right away, basically, you can sign with your own team 2 days after the finals, 1 day after the finals, whatever it is, but you can't tie up restricted guys that soon. Between extensions becoming more prominent, so there's less cap space going around the league, and between what just happened with all these restricted guys with their qualifying offers being higher to the point that they're like a tenable contract, on one hand, I think he's probably like, maybe I should consider an extension more. Everybody already is staying on their own team. But on the other hand, there's enough of a cap environment that I still think he could wonder about if he absolutely balls out, could he get a big deal? And this could come from the Pacers, to be clear, but could he get a big deal from someone else? Or could he play well enough that he could bluff and say another team is going to offer him something the Pacers better offer it? So what do I think Ben Mathurin's conclusion should be when it comes to an extension in the next 30 days? We'll talk about that. We'll talk more about Aaron Nesmith and so many more Pacers things coming up here on Locked On Pacers. But before we talk about any of that, let's talk about Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. It's training reimagined. It's built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Their Peloton IQ systems offers real-time strength coaching. It tracks your reps, suggests the right rates, and connects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. They have a swivel screen. It's a game changer. So you can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat, and personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level every single week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at OnePeloton, OnePeloton.com. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Sixers. I think Quentin Grimes signing a qualifying offer is a disaster for the Sixers. It makes them look stupid for not using some of their mid-level exception. How did this happen? Locked On Sixers will have more. I apologize if I am rambly or tired. I did a red eye last night home from Vegas, but this show has been very fun for me to talk about cap stuff. The reason I think that Ben Mathurin extension outlook hasn't changed a ton, even given what just happened, is something I just said. The qualifying offer still sucks for the player and the team, right? Everybody always talks about how, maybe the player can get more money from other stuff. It stinks for them. They're making less. And if they get traded, their odds of getting a non-bird contract that's relative to their value is not very good. And for the team, they lose some trade options. Their future with that player is clearly fractured to some extent. Like Miles Bridges and Spencer Hawes are the only guys ever basically to sign their qualifying offer and then return to the team after it. So it's not a good spot to be, right? You don't want to be negotiating in a spot where it's like, dang, I might have to take the qualifying offer. So that would make me think that an extension is more likely for Ben Mathurin. But I think that dynamic combined with the there's more cap space out there impact, I think those kind of come out in the wash. And I think if you're Ben Mathurin, regardless of what happened with all these other guys, he has something that didn't happen for any of these guys except for Josh Giddey. And we're going to talk about why that's important at the end of this. He has a huge opportunity this season. Because everybody keeps saying, with this situation and keep missing, they're like, well, what if he balls out? That's why they should extend him now. It's like, well, if Ben Mathurin thinks he's going to ball out, he's not going to take an extension. But if he balls out, the Pacers should want to pay him. They should want to have good players on their team. And they'll have restricted free agency to keep him. So that's fine. If you're the Pacers and he plays really well, that's fine. So to me, the upside for a Mathurin extension has not moved enough for anything to have changed because of this. In fact, I would say that of the four marquee restricted guys who had tenuous situations with their team in Giddey, Thomas, Grimes, and Kuminga, the fact that Josh Giddey did the best with $100 guaranteed million, and he was the guy who had his fourth year where he came in a new situation with a big opportunity and he seized it. I think that, if anything, should make Mathurin confident that he doesn't need to extend right now. Obi Toppin came to the Pacers after 3 seasons. The Pacers wanted to see if he fit. He had a great fourth season. He had a nice contract. Isaiah Jackson just got one. I think that Mathurin should be comfortable in the fact that if he plays well, he will still get paid. But right now, given all the financial questions surrounding the Pacers, if that's even the right way to phrase that, given Mathurin's questions about what his fourth season is going to look like, given the team dynamic shift this year, I do not think that restricted free agency from this year's class taught us enough to change my stance. I do think that if you made me actually handicap it, I would say that maybe 1%. If I'm advising Ben Mathurin, I'm maybe 1 or 2% more likely to take an extension, but probably not. So I think that while this is still trending toward, see how it plays out on the court, I don't think enough has changed on the front of extensions to talk about it anymore unless it happens. The deadline, again, is Monday, October 20th. That is a day before the start of the regular season, 3 days before the Pacers' first game. If you have any questions about all that, because that was a lot of cap stuff, that was a lot of different teams, there was a lot of different situations, just let me know. The other extension-eligible Pacer, as you well know, is Aaron Nesmith. This is different in that it's a veteran extension. There's no restricted free agency involved, and it doesn't start for 2 seasons and not just one. But all those factors are unique to Aaron Nesmith. And there hasn't been any veteran extensions in a while this offseason. Some happened last month, but I think the most recent one was PJ Washington, which was one that sort of changed things for Aaron Nesmith. In fact, Rhett Bauer and I talked about extensions for Nesmith and what his value could be on a show last month. And I think PJ Washington happened like right after that, like the day after. 4 years, $88 million, right? If Nesmith could sign a 4-year extension, it'd be worth about $84, $85 million, right? That they're like similarly impactful players to me. So I do think enough guys have signed extensions around Nesmith's range this offseason. Herb Jones, 3 years, 67.5. PJ Washington, 4 years, 88.7. That I do suppose that the same thing I've said all summer. The Pacers' max offer for Nesmith is 3 years, about 63.5. That is probably in the ballpark of what makes sense as Nesmith's market value. But because he has 2 years left on his deal, I might be willing to wait as Aaron Nesmith. Wait a year. Obviously, his stock could fall not playing with Haliburton, but it could rise in a situation where there's more shots or touches available. I don't know that he needs to rush into things, and I don't know that anything has really happened around the NBA that if I'm Aaron Nesmith, I'm like, I have to go now. I have to do this, lock this in right now. And it's so easy for me to say that. I'm not the guy who could get offered $63 million. But I don't think that when you think about maximizing his earnings, that it makes sense for him to rush into this unless he's so set on, yes, no matter what, I want to be with the Pacers. And I think that that's a reasonable contract for me. Because if he waits a year, his max extension would be very similar, first 3-year value, but he could add a 4th year. And that just, in theory, is maximizing your earnings even more. So if he thinks that this contract or whatever he could get next year is in the realm of possibility of what his free agency deal would look like 2 years from now, an extension makes sense for Aaron Nesmith. And I think that the market value says that that's pretty close. But does he want to lock it in now? Does he want to try to do what Mathurin could do and have a good year and ball out? Or is he all about taking the money now, which he did on his rookie scale extension, and then working from there? Although his future in the NBA seems, let's say, much more secure than last time Aaron Nesmith took a contract extension. So I would say while a lot has changed with Mathurin in terms of the market really settling, and we get all the information possible about what his future could look like, I don't really think anything has changed for either player in the last month of time. If you made me guess right now, I would say it's the same thing I've always been saying. Mathurin extension, no. Nesmith extension, if I'm the Pacers, I offer the maximum I can offer. And I guess if you made me really guess, I would guess 45% yes, 55% no. And I think Aaron Nesmith, if I were advising him, I would tell him not to take it. But I get why he would. And it's so close to his market value. It's yeah, you know what? If you can lock it in now, just lock it in now. Don't deal with injuries. Don't deal with the chance that your stock drops without a star player. But alas, who knows? Nothing now can change for these guys. Unless some crazy number of veteran and a rookie skill extensions comes in the next couple weeks. That's the other part to keep an eye on. The other factor that I guess could change things for Mathurin is if guys in his draft class start signing contracts. If Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray or Jalen Duren or Jeremy Sohan or Shaedon Sharpe or whatever, if they start signing extensions, I suppose that could change what I just said. But to me, there's not a lot that could actually happen now between now and the deadline that would maybe go, oh, that really changes what Ben Mathurin and Aaron Nesmith should be thinking, or, oh, wow, the Pacers should think differently about extending either player. So they're both officially allowed to be extended. They both have reasons to do it and to not do it. And we will see what happens. That's my lovely, wonderful insight on all that. And now we don't have to talk about any transactions until they actually happen with those two. Let's talk about some other stuff happening in Pacerland, some Exhibit 10 signees, one to come, and a little bit about the Fever to close out today's Locked On Pacers. But first, guys, we need to talk about the great people over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here. There's games back tonight. And FanDuel has an offer that you will not want to miss right now. If you're a new customer on FanDuel, you can bet just $5. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5. If it hits, boom, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app. Many people use FanDuel and love it for all sorts of different reasons. The app gives you so many ways to play, like following the live lines during the games, doing those fun player props, building parlays, so much more. Makes football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan, love diving into the stats, watching in whatever way you like, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Heat. Nikola Jovic, speaking of rookie extensions, just signed 4 years, $62 million with the Miami Heat. I don't think that impacts anything for Mathurin, but about top in value, that makes sense to me as a contract. The Pacers, let's catch you up on their Exhibit 10 situation. I know everybody's favorite thing, but this matters. These guys could be on the boom. They could get promotions at some point in the future. Jalen Slosson's making a bunch of threes in camp, blah, blah, blah. So Jalen Slosson, we've talked about like why I thought him being in camp meant a camp battle could be coming. I probably overthought that a little bit, but still the fact that he's in camp at all is good for the Pacers. They brought 21 players this year. Gabe McLaughlin is in camp as well. I know very little of him. He played for Denver in preseason last year. I believe he got in for one game. So he's played in like an actual NBA game in an NBA arena, albeit preseason. And then in this summer for Summer League, he played for the Mavericks. And now in the Pacers G League team traded for his rights in August. Now he is also in camp. He's played so little for any NBA situation that I have very little opinion of him. He shot 38% from three and grabbed 6.4 boards per game last year in the G League. So perhaps like a shooting forward kind of player. He went to Grand Canyon in college. So that's 21 players for the Pacers in camp right now. And part of the explanation for doing that is just like, I think you should. If you can have 21 players for camp, bring in 21. Even if there's 3 guys you know you're going to cut, see them in camp, see if you like them, learn more about them. Maybe they're good, maybe you hate them and never will sign them again in the future. Don't you want to know if there's a 0.5% chance it matters? Shouldn't you do it? I understand that it might be more taxing for coaches or just too much to juggle, but I've always thought it was smart to do that. And this is the first time in a couple of years the Pacers have brought all 21 players to camp that they're allowed to bring. We'll see what it means for those guys with Fan Jam, for example, coming up on Sunday and then their first preseason game next Tuesday, if they make any appearances or not. But Slauson and McLaughlin, even though they're there, they do not seem to figure into the Pacers' plans. They seem to be more boom players getting a nice opportunity. But so far we've seen them, Jalen Slosson's making a bunch of jumpers when we can see him in practice. But that is the current status of the Pacers Exhibit 10Es. They're adding another one, and one that many of you might know, Indy legend, former Sacramento King and Cleveland Cavalier, and I forget his other team, Kyle Guy is going to sign an Exhibit 10 with the Pacers. This is a new one. I've never seen this. He was an assistant coach for Nevada, and Nevada's basketball team tweeted that he was signing the Exhibit 10. I've never seen a player transaction broken by a college program that they coach for. I believe we could see Kyle Guy at practice this week. Somebody said that he was there. I didn't actually see him myself. That's why I say I believe, and that's on me for not being observant enough or maybe not recognizing who he is because I've seen him in person many times at his pro-am kind of deals. So I expect that to be, and I think Dustin Dopirak of the Indy Star reported this, to be a Noblesville Boom contract, not an actual chance for him to make the Pacers roster, but with all his Indiana roots, that's pretty cool. The function of that, if it's important to you, is at some point before camp is over, they could waive one of their other Exhibit 10 guys and then sign Kyle Guy to an Exhibit 10 using that roster spot and then immediately re-waive him, and they would get G League rights for all the relevant players that they want in the boom. They just have to be on the team's camp roster for a day, a day that camp happens, if that makes sense. So expect that to happen at some point. And I think that shows that the back-end Exhibit 10 guys currently in camp don't really have a shot to make the roster, which is why they're signing other Exhibit 10Es. But that is the Pacers roster and transactional updates since the last time we talked about transaction. Not a lot of crazy stuff going on, but that is what this time of year is like. We will see if any extensions come through for other teams that would impact the Pacers or if the Pacers are the team that does it. I thought that Sabonis was not going to happen, and then it did. I thought some that were going to happen did not. You just never know with this kind of stuff and this amount of money. And we'll keep you updated on all of it right here on Locked On Pacers. I want to close today out talking a bit about the Fever. I still have their playoff shirt up behind me. Their season ended on Tuesday night in Las Vegas against the Aces. Look, I know that many of you are here for the Pacers. The Fever just had a playoff run that was very Pacers-esque this year in that they just had this kind of spirit and never die ability that made them so gripping to fans. Like, backs against the wall did not matter to that team. They were down 0-1 against a team better than them in the first round. They smoked them at home and then won a tight game in Atlanta to move on to the second round. They won game 1 against the Aces, who've been in the finals 2 of the last 3 years and won championships in that stretch. They beat the Aces at home to force a game 5. And they did all of this without Caitlin Clark for the whole playoffs and without so many other key players from their season. Their backup point guard at one point, their backup to the backup point guard. At one point, they signed DeWanna Bonner in the offseason. She's a 6-time All-Star. She just bailed on the team in the middle of the season. So to lose all these players to injury, to lose your marquee offseason addition, and have to rely on so many players that they signed to hardship deals, it was such a fascinating and exciting Fever season, even without Caitlin Clark, in that they proved that the team they have can play the way that their coach wants. Stephanie White had a great season and can win with Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. And if you add Caitlin Clark to that mix, that should be a great team, a great team. So it's exciting for them that even with so many players out and so much adversity in their face, they were able to overcome it and go on a deep run. We'll hold X interviews on Thursday. I don't know if anybody listening cares about that. But what it showed to me is something the Pacers also showed, and something that I will now never take for granted after this did not happen for a long time for the Pacers. Setting an identity with a group of players is so important. The Fever had trouble capturing identity this year, not because they couldn't do it, but because there had so many injuries that their team was changing all the time. Key players touching the ball, the amount they were doing it, kept changing. And so finally, in like mid-August, even though they were banged up and like were worse from a roster perspective, they had the same top 9 for a month and a half. And that group really could build chemistry and build an identity and figure out how they wanted to play off of each other. And they were really good. They could play off their 2 top 6 players, and their role players would be good. And they won a series, and they almost made the freaking WNBA finals. And I remember the Pacers, when they had Karis LeVert and Malcolm Brogdon leading their backcourt, one day at practice, I asked both of them at separate times, what do you think your identity is as a team? And they gave me vastly different answers after long pauses and not really knowing. And if you just don't know what your identity is as a team, what are you? What are you trying to be? You just have to have one. And the Fever clearly did, and the Pacers in the playoffs this year clearly did. And both of them said, screw your norms of what should work in the playoffs. We're going to play this way, and it's going to work because it's the best thing for our talent. So even though it was a heartbreaking end of the Fever season, I know a lot of you listening are mostly Pacers fans, which is why you're here. Let them be another lesson that the Pacers have showed you the last couple of years. Identity matters a lot. And being able to play a certain way that fits the players you have matters a lot. And so as the Pacers go into this year where it might behoove them to switch styles a little bit, they cannot stray too far away because their identity made them awesome. And when Tyrese Haliburton returns, they still need to have it. Congrats to the Fever on a fun season. Thank you all so much for listening today. Tomorrow, we'll run through the many little things of week 1 of Pacers camp that were interesting or noteworthy to me, what it could mean for their season, the rotation, things of that note. Jarris Walker, James Wiseman, Daylon Wright. We've talked to lots of guys. And then we'll be back next week when games are happening. We're like 5 days away from the beginning of preseason. You can follow me for more Pacers coverage at Tony R. East on Twitter and Blue Sky. This podcast is at Locked On Pacers on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you very soon.